It all started like any other weekend. I was out front, washing my own car, music playing, enjoying the sun. Then she showed up, this lady I'd never met before, strutting down the sidewalk like she owned the whole block. She stopped, gave my car a long stare, then turned her eyes to me. "You can wash mine next," she said, pointing at her SUV parked across the street. I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but she wasn't smiling. I told her politely that I wasn't running a car wash, just cleaning my own ride. That's when everything changed. Her expression went cold. She stormed off, muttering something under her breath, and within minutes, I kid you not, she was on her phone, calling 911. At first, I thought, asterisk, there's no way she's actually doing this asterisk, but she was dead serious. She told the dispatcher I was being hostile and refusing a simple request. I stood there stunned, wondering how refusing to wash a stranger's car could lead to a call to the cops. Then I saw the patrol car pull up, lights flashing. That's when I knew things were about to get real. What happened next? Let's just say it was way more dramatic than I ever expected, and it definitely didn't end how she thought it would. The officer stepped out of the car, looking around like he expected to find some kind of fight happening. Karen, yeah, that's what I started calling her in my head, waved him over like she was the one calling the shots. She immediately launched into this dramatic story about how I was being aggressive, uncooperative, and disturbing the peace. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had barely said 10 words to her. I stood there with a sponge still in my hand, just trying to process it all. The officer looked at me and asked if I had any weapons on me. Weapons? I was in flip-flops and covered in soap suds. I explained everything from the start, how she came up out of nowhere, demanded I wash her car, and then got mad when I said no. The cop gave me this look like he wasn't sure who to believe. I could feel the neighbors watching from behind their curtains, probably wondering what all the fuss was about. Karen kept talking over me, trying to twist every little detail to make me look bad. Then she said something that really caught me off guard. She claimed I had threatened her safety. That's when I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. She was trying to flip the script completely. At this point, I could feel my pulse racing. I wasn't scared of getting in trouble. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but the way she was twisting the story, I started worrying the officer might actually believe her. She was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes with confidence. Like she'd done this before, like she knew how to play the system. I kept my voice steady and told the officer again that I never even raised my voice to her. But Karen jumped in, saying I glared at her and made her feel unsafe. She even pointed at the sponge in my hand like it was some sort of weapon. The crazy part, she started crying. Right there on the sidewalk, out of nowhere. That fake, shaky voice, wiping at invisible tears. The officer stepped aside to speak with her privately, and I just stood there, trying to hold my ground. That's when one of my neighbors, Mr. Jenkins, came out from his porch. He'd seen the whole thing. Quiet guy, doesn't get involved in much. But today, he walked straight over and told the officer what really happened. Karen noticed him and shot him this look, like she couldn't believe someone was siding with me. That's when the whole situation started to shift, but not in the way you'd expect. The officer's face changed as Mr. Jenkins calmly explained everything he saw, that I never approached her, never shouted, never did anything but wash my own car. You could tell the officer was starting to second-guess the whole situation, but Karen wasn't backing down. In fact, she doubled down. She suddenly claimed that I had followed her to the car earlier that week, saying I made her feel targeted. That was a complete lie. I hadn't even seen her before today. I shook my head in disbelief, and that's when I noticed her phone in her hand, recording everything. Not for proof, no, this felt different. It was like she wanted to build a case, or maybe create a viral moment where she looked like the victim. Then she pointed at Mr. Jenkins and said he was probably his friend, trying to make it seem like we were working together to intimidate her. The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. Now there were two completely different stories, and the pressure in the air was thick. I could feel more neighbors starting to gather, whispering among themselves, watching everything unfold. Karen's voice kept rising, now pacing, now getting louder. She told the officer, "If you don't arrest him, I'm calling your supervisor." And that's when the second squad car pulled up. The second squad car came to a stop, and another officer stepped out, this one with a more serious look, like he'd been briefed on something urgent. Karen straightened up immediately, fixing her tone, flipping from outrage to helpless in seconds. She started waving her arms, telling him she felt cornered and harassed in her own neighborhood, even though she didn't live on our street. That's when Mr. Jenkins chimed in again, saying he'd never seen her before today. The new officer asked Karen for ID. At first, she pretended not to hear, then claimed she left it at home. But when he pressed again, she reluctantly handed over a card, only it wasn't hers. It had someone else's name. The officers exchanged a look, and for the first time, I saw Karen hesitate. Now things were spinning. What started as a false 911 call about car washing had turned into something else entirely. One of the officers quietly asked dispatch to run the name on the card. Karen kept talking fast, saying she was being treated unfairly, but her voice had lost that sharp confidence. You could see it, she wasn't in control anymore. Then came the real twist. The officer leaned into his radio and said, "We might have a situation here. She's flagged." The moment those words dropped, everything froze. Karen went completely still when she heard the officer say she was flagged. You could see the panic hit her face like a wave. She tried to laugh it off, saying there must be a mistake, but the officers weren't buying it. One of them pulled her aside while the other came over to me and Mr. Jenkins. He quietly told us that the name on the ID was linked to multiple false reports and that she'd been warned before about misusing emergency services. I stood there stunned. This wasn't just some entitled woman trying to get her way. She had a history of doing this. And now it finally caught up with her. The officers told her they'd be filing an official report and that she could be facing serious consequences, not just for the false 911 call, but for using someone else's ID. Just when I thought it was over, one of the neighbors walked over, someone I didn't even know, and handed the officer a small security camera from his porch. He said, "I got the whole thing on video, from the moment she stepped onto your driveway." Karen's eyes widened. She hadn't noticed the camera. The officers took the footage and told me they'd follow up. As they walked her to the car for questioning, she turned back and said, "You'll regret this." But honestly, that's when I knew she already had. After Karen was taken in for questioning, the street slowly returned to normal. The neighbors, who had been peeking from behind curtains and fences, started coming out to talk. A few of them said they were glad someone finally stood up to her. Apparently, she caused scenes like this in other areas too, always looking for trouble and attention. I had no idea how far it had gone, but it made sense now. Mr. Jenkins gave me a quick nod and went back to his porch like nothing happened. That simple moment reminded me how powerful it is to speak up when it matters. Without him, who knows how badly this could have gone. One false claim, and it could have spiraled out of control. The officers later called to say she wouldn't be returning to our block anytime soon, and they appreciated the way I handled everything calmly. I finished washing my car, believe it or not, and it felt like the most peaceful part of the whole day. So, yeah, next time someone walks up and demands a favor with attitude, remember this story. Not everything is what it seems, and sometimes the quietest people turn out to be the real heroes.